Hey there, and welcome to Broadband Deployment News. So there are rural areas of Texas where the Texas State Broadband Map says people have broadband, but the residents would beg to differ. Be right back. Thanks for joining me. Rick Husey here with Broadband Deployment News. So I wanted to look at this story and then look at some maps and see what we see here. So this is the East Texas Tribune. And what we see here is with billions of dollars on the line, East Texans say a crucial state map incorrectly shows they already have broadband. East Texans worry that they could miss out on federal dollars because a state map that will help determine where the money goes shows they already have access to broadband. Residents say their broadband is chronically unreliable if they even have it. So you see this is in Nogales Prairie, Texas. So this picture right here, this is what we're dealing with when we're talking about some of these rural areas. This is Nogales, Texas right here. You can see here a utility truck drives down a gravel road on March 20th in Nogales Prairie. And you can see again, so these are very rural areas. You've got houses few and far between. And so they're difficult to serve. This is why they don't have good services, because for a private company to go in there and do this is very expensive. There may be some services there now that are older technology that are not going to be giving them what they need for broadband. And then for somebody to come in and upgrade that to something future-proof like fiber would be very expensive to install the infrastructure. And it's expensive to maintain even once you get the infrastructure in, because again, you've got utility trucks that are driving a lot further to go from place to place. You've got longer runs of fiber with fewer customers. So it's just expensive overall. So it's a hard ROI for a private internet provider to make a case for. But that's why we have broadband dollars coming. And that's why we are trying to identify areas that are unserved and then underserved as the next target to be able to provide broadband funds, because that will help get the infrastructure built. And once it's built, then it's a little bit easier to make a profit, even if you have fewer customers, because at least the infrastructure is there. So we see here, again, by day, Joan Ragland helps teachers and students at the local school district get the electronic devices they need, iPads, computers, and projectors. But at the end of the day, when she drives home, she's never quite sure if her own electronic devices will work. Before evening Zoom meetings, Ragland, 76, tells the other attendees, "I'll be in attendance if I have service." So that's her there. Ragland is hopeful that will change soon. She and thousands of other East Texans are part of a petition challenging the accuracy of the Texas Broadband Development Map that shows internet availability and speeds across the state. The map will help determine where billions of dollars earmarked for high-speed internet will be distributed. So the Texas map will not determine how much money Texas gets. What will determine that is the FCC National Broadband Map. And each state, including Texas, is going to get $100 million. And then the broadband map is going to be looking at the data on that being calculated from those locations that can be served plus which locations are served will determine how much each state gets. So the percentage of unserved locations that a state has, anything less than 25 by 3 compared to all the unserved locations throughout the country, that will determine how much in addition they get over that $100 million. And Texas is actually, the last time I looked, was expected to be number one as far as the amount of money that a state's going to get. So Texas is looking like they're going to be getting quite a few funds. Now, once Texas gets the money, then they can use their own mapping or their own on-the-ground kind of intelligence, what do they have there, to determine, okay, we've got this money. Now we want to make sure that we're sending it to the right places. So even if there are mistakes on the FCC map, let's say an area is served, if Texas finds that it's not, then they can still allocate funding there. But we seem to have the reverse here, which we'll see in a minute. More than 2.8 million Texas households and 7 million Texans lack broadband, according to the Census Bureau. Now, I don't know how recent that data is and how it was taken. It's not related to so much data coming in from internet service providers or states or anything like that. So this would be just people being, I guess, asked by the Census Bureau. Disproportionate number of those are in rural areas, such as deep East Texas, where a low population density makes it less profitable for companies to establish broadband infrastructure. Companies that do enter rural areas charge customers higher than average for slower than average speeds. Some of that's just maybe lack of competition, but other for other reasons, again, because it's difficult, it's expensive to serve, it's expensive to put the infrastructure in, you got to get paid back on that, and then you've got to get paid back month to month for your maintenance of that network. According to the state map, the vast majority of Texans already have access to broadband, defined as high-speed internet that delivers download speeds of at least 25 megabits per second and upload speeds of at least 3 megabits per second. So that is the current FCC definition of broadband. So anything under 25 by 3 would be considered unserved, according to the funding that we're waiting on from BEAD. That's the Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Program. And that's, again, what we're trying to finalize, how much each state is going to get from that. But in East Texas, the petitioners say broadband access is unreliable. We're not a third-rate country, but we do have areas out here where we just don't have internet, Ragland said. You look at the map and it looks like everybody's covered, but everybody's not covered. I'll scroll through some of this, a lot of the same things, comments, different residents. Under current state law, an area is designated as eligible if less than 80% of addresses in that area have access to internet speeds of at least 25 meg or 25 by 3. Eligible areas are prioritized for broadband grant funding. So a lot of that would be based on prior funding. The NTIA has specific rules as far as BEAD and where that money goes and what can be a unserved project, an underserved project. And really it works out to be, an unserved project, 25 by 3, could be as small as one home. So you have to do that. So if you got a home that you can't really aggregate, 80% of homes in an area, but you've got one home that's way out there, you've got to serve that home. It's still unserved. Everybody needs to get the broadband. So that could be an unserved broadband project, according to the Notice of Funding Opportunity from the NTIA on the BEAD program. The council collected internet speed data from more than 3,000 residents in Deep East Texas and identified 54 census blocks where most residents' internet speeds are below that threshold. Hunt said the number is probably higher, but they didn't receive enough responses from most census blocks. Survey respondents spanning from Newton County on the Louisiana border to more than 100 miles west in Houston County said they and their neighbors struggled to get online. Some said they could not even complete a speed test because their connection was so slow. And that's how you know when you have a slow connection. You hit the speed test, and one of the things it does is download a lot of data to check your speed, and sometimes it just bogs down and doesn't work. We have no internet, so we can't test the system, one respondent wrote. The office created the Broadband Development Map by collecting data from internet service providers. That data does not match what East Texans say they have experienced. So that's interesting because broadband service providers are providing data to the FCC national map. They have to do that. And it sounds like they provided it on this Texas map, but the two don't match. So it'd be interesting to see why that's different. Many East Texas residents who responded to the council survey said their internet is chronically slow. Ragland, who lives in Trinity County, opted to buy 2 different internet services to try to maximize her coverage. For the 2 services, she pays more than $100 per month, according to recent bills. Speed tests indicate her internet is too slow to meet the definition of broadband. Well, she could probably get Starlink for a little over 100, as we'll see here. Somebody else is getting that. So that would be one solution for now for her. Let me scroll a little bit further here. Some of the most rural parts of East Texas rely on satellite broadband technology, a wireless system that sends and receives signals from orbiting satellites. Again, that would be like you've got from SpaceX's Starlink. I did a Tech Tuesday yesterday about OneWeb that's coming out with their satellite service, although that's not going to be aimed specifically directly at retail consumers. But then you've got Amazon's Project Kuiper that's going to be launching here in the future, maybe 2024. They've just released what their terminals look like, but they still got to get satellites up there. Jonathan Adams, who lives in Nacogdoches, love that, Nacogdoches County, and works in law enforcement, recently purchased Starlink, the new satellite internet service owned by Elon Musk SpaceX. Internet speeds are faster than what he had before, but the costs are higher. Adams pays $110 per month for service. He said his rate will go up to $120 next month. Upfront costs to purchase and ship the equipment are about $600. Adams installed the equipment himself to save money. So Starlink, not sure about the 110. Starlink, from what I understand, charges $90, I think it is, if you're in an area that's not yet busy. And then once it gets kind of congested, they up the rate to $120. So the more busy it is, the higher the cost. So I'm not sure why 110 to 120, but I bet it's got something to do with how congested the area is. In the area where I'm at, that's going to be cost prohibitive for a lot of people. Adam said, yeah, it's a high bill for broadband. A lot of people either don't have the physical ability or skill to mount the equipment, and then they're going to be forced to hire somebody. East Texan said that satellite internet should not qualify as broadband service. Satellite services often have data caps, and speeds can slow down as more customers sign up for it. As far as BEAD and the notice of funding opportunity for that, satellite does not qualify as what they call reliable broadband, which means it should not be used in providing service to an unserved or underserved area. Wired service is okay, and that would include DSL as long as it's over 25 by 3 for an unserved area, let's say. But things like fixed wireless with licensed spectrum only. And then, of course, fiber, cable modem service. And like I say, I think DSL even could be reliable service if it's above the speeds, if it's considered broadband. Wireless has to be all licensed spectrum, or I believe a combination of unlicensed and licensed is okay. They consider that reliable broadband, but all unlicensed spectrum is not considered reliable broadband. So the state of Texas will have to do reliable broadband unless they can make a case that only something like Starlink is viable. So, and that would be a high bar, I would think, to be able to say that you can't even do licensed fixed wireless in an area to be able to get that service. So, again, they don't need to worry about that as far as satellite does not count on the FCC map, although, and Texas is not supposed to say satellite will work for you unless they run that through the NTIA as to why they have to go that route. Texas is challenging a federal broadband map. So 2 East Texas lawmakers, these two, a senator and a representative, have proposed a pair of bills in the Senate and the House that could increase the amount of broadband funding East Texas receives. So this would be taking the amount of money, a greater percentage of the amount of money that Texas would get, and then applying that to East Texas. So I'm not sure why they're doing that, because I'm sure all areas of the state are wanting that money. Well, a lot of the map-making process will be driven by federal guidelines. Raising the threshold for broadband service within these bills will have a positive effect on mapping of rural areas, Ashby said in an email. By raising the speed threshold, some of those who are currently considered served will no longer be considered served, but rather unserved or underserved under a new definition that will be under the new definition and will be prioritized as is required under state and federal program guidelines. So again, that's kind of monkeying around with the definitions that the FCC has and that are in the BEAD program. So the problem is if you raise the threshold, then you've got more people that need the funds. So you might have somebody, let's say that today has, I don't know, let's say they're getting 90 by 20 or something like that. So their broadband's not great, but it's not bad. Well, if you suddenly make them unserved, then they're going to have to be addressed first. And then what about other people that have less than that? So I don't know why they're monkeying with this, because here's how I look at it. So you've got 25 by 3. Everybody's saying, well, the broadband definition needs to be higher. And yeah, it does. But the problem is, as soon as you raise the definition of broadband, then you have more people that don't have broadband. You haven't changed anything. You just have more people that don't have broadband. And the FCC is kind of leaning heavily into fiber. So if you get fiber installed, regardless of what speed somebody has, if they're 25 by 3 or 100 by 20, if those areas can get fiber, then getting up over that is not a big hurdle. It's getting the fiber there to begin with. Once you get the fiber there, then speeds of 100 symmetrical, no problem. You could do gig symmetrical. I mean, these people that are going to be putting in fiber are probably going to be putting in XGS-PON kinds of cards. They may not use them at first, but that's all that stuff's backward compatible, and the prices have come down on those cards. So as you get the actual fiber in the ground, then you put in your equipment, your OLTs, and you get, let's say, like I say, cards in the OLT that are XGS-PON, then they're going to be capable of 10 gig. And it's just a matter of turning that up. And then, of course, you need the capacity going back to the internet as well. But the main thing is to try to get, and this is what they're trying to do, is to get fiber in as many places as you can. And then you don't need to worry so much about raising the definition of broadband now. You can look at that later. But what we want to do now is get the latest technology, or certainly technology that can get higher speeds out there now. So I don't think they should be monkeying with the speeds at this point. This year, Texas will receive at least $100 million through the BEAD program. So again, every state gets $100 million. Texas is going to get way more than that. Some states, like maybe New Hampshire, might not get much more than that because they're small and they have fewer unserved areas. But Texas, huge place, vast amounts of land and vast areas like we just saw here where you don't have that many people living. They're going to get a lot of money. So they're going to get well over $100 million. How much more federal money the state receives will be announced by June 30th and is determined by the FCC's National Broadband Map, as I said, and the NTIA is planning on coming out on June 30th, or I think probably sooner maybe, to come say how much each state will get. That map shows household level information about who lacks access to reliable speed internet, and that's a new thing with this FCC map. It used to be by census block, didn't show everybody, not even close. The State Broadband Development Office challenged that map in February, which is interesting. So the same office that has this map that doesn't seem to be accurate challenged the FCC map, but they needed to. They challenged the map in February after identifying 176,000 businesses or residences that are not on the map, according to an agency spokesperson. So that could very well have been prior to, and most likely was prior to, updates to the broadband fabric that determines the locations where broadband should be. So there have been a lot of changes, and the FCC, the current FCC map, probably is much more accurate and probably has these locations and businesses on it now, or at least the majority of them, probably close to all of them. The Deep East Texas Council of Governments also submitted their own challenge to the FCC after finding that 27% of East Texans the council interviewed could not find their home on the federal map. An FCC spokesperson said the maps are continually being updated. So the FCC has processed a whole bunch of challenges, both from states and internet service providers and consumers who are going on and saying, hey, my house isn't on here. Or who are saying, hey, I'm on here, but it says I get gig internet and I can't even get 10 megabits per second. And the FCC is looking at those internet service providers who are saying they provide something that don't have 60 days to respond to that. So those challenges are being handled at the same time. Here again, you see what an aerial view of Groveton in Texas. So again, this would be this is more like the populated area right here with a few businesses and whatnot. So that's what's going on here in this story. But I wanted to take a look at the map. So this is the Texas map, and I went ahead and I pulled up an address close to the byline in the story. So the byline was from Nogales Prairie. So I'm assuming I put in Nogales and I got this. So I was looking at these areas in the map. So you see here on the map, you got a blue square would be served. So that would be over 25. That would actually probably be over 100 by 20. Because then you've got underserved, which would be these gold diamonds that we see on the map. And then you've got unserved, which would be a red dot, a red circle. And all of these are the gold triangle or gold diamonds. So these are considered underserved, which would mean less than 100 by 20, but over 25 by 3. So these folks are considered to have broadband according to the current FCC definition. And according to that definition, these guys would be second in line to any areas that are unserved. So any areas on the Texas state map that are round dots, red dots, would be considered unserved, and they're supposed to get money first. But these guys would be second to that because they're underserved, and you have to do your unserved first. So you can see why they're not happy here if they indeed are not getting the service, and they claim they're not getting the service. And I went ahead and I pulled the same area up on the FCC, the National Broadband Map, and according to the FCC map, they are indeed, as you see here, not served. There are settings on the map that you can set. So I have it set for all wired and licensed wireless, licensed fixed wireless. So that would be pretty much what's considered reliable broadband. You've got on here, and that would include cable, DSL, fiber. It does not include satellite. It does not include unlicensed fixed wireless. So this would be what's considered reliable broadband according to the NOFO for BEAD, the BEAD program. So you got all wired and licensed fixed wireless, and anything that's greater than or equal to 25 by 3. So these then are considered unserved. So you see you got these round dots. And when you click on this one here, it's unserved. And looking at who the map says you can get broadband from, you've just got a couple of three satellite companies basically listed on here. So I don't even see DSL on here or fixed wireless. So you got Hughes, SpaceX, that's Starlink service. So you can get 100 by 10, you get SpaceX. So as the one guy said, hey, the service is better, but it's expensive. And then you've got Viasat. So what you have here are two geosynchronous orbit satellites where you got your satellites 30,000 miles up. And then you've got SpaceX where you've got satellites 430 miles up. So much closer, much lower latency. So this is good service, just expensive. And again, as it gets congested, your price goes up. As it gets congested, your speed goes down, as any internet service would be the case. But it's especially so on satellites where you've got it's just a limited bandwidth compared to what you could do with, let's say, a fiber connection, and then just getting more and more backbone connection to the backbone. Now, I didn't click all around in here, but I'll click this one. Here we go. So, whoops, on this place, says I've got Consolidated Communications, says they've got copper. So here's DSL, you got 0.2, so you don't even have a megabit you don't even have a megabit. 0.2 up and down and up. And then you've got T-Mobile saying they've got about the same. Then you got, again, these satellite operators over here. Let's check that out. Got the same thing. So the first one I clicked did not have any DSL or anything showing. Here, the same thing. I've just got the satellites. Here you got T-Mobile. So T-Mobile's got kind of patchy coverage. Viasat. So there's your all of these. It looks like all these areas. This is interesting. Okay, here's a green home coverage available. Let's see what they have. So Consolidated Communications is saying that they can offer 50 by 5 here at this one home. So is that true? They got a few. Maybe they have. Okay, so we're starting to get in some green here. I don't know why I'd have green here. Again, this is Consolidated. They're saying you can get 250 by 40 here. I believe this is a cable operator Consolidated. No, it says copper. Sorry. So that would be DSL. So it could be based on how close you are to their. Well, it definitely a factor is how close you are to their central office. So with DSL, the further you get away from their central office, the slower the speeds get. So maybe their central office or their equipment that's in the field, the DSLAM, it's called the DSLAM. Maybe it's somewhere in this area where they can get better speeds. Here you see 300 by 75, 90 by 5, 60 by 5. The only question I have is why can this person get 250 by 40 and this person doesn't get it at all? So I don't see DSL. So for some reason, Consolidated didn't seem to go down this road is the way I look at it. This looks like it's out in the middle of nowhere, so who knows what this is. There you say you get 100 by 10, and this doesn't get it. Let's look at satellite. So that looks like it's in the middle of nowhere. It looks like it's a long driveway. You get a long driveway here, and it's very possible that one of these is a garage or something, and it's on the FCC map as a location, but it's not supposed to be. But here's a long driveway where maybe they paid to get the service. Then again, you've got this one here that's got 250. Then you've got that one there that does not. So it could be that in some cases on these long driveways that people had to pay a pretty high setup fee, and I'm talking thousands of dollars, maybe tens of thousands in some cases. Maybe not for DSL. But for fiber, a lot of times that's the case, or even cable. But if you got phone lines, it may be that it's not as big a deal. So again, it's interesting that you've got kind of a mixture here. Here's one. This location says it's got 300 by 75 copper from Consolidated, whereas this one, whatever this is, close to the road, does not. So, and T-Mobile could come in here. If they have the frequency available in this area, they could provide 5G service. It's licensed, and then suddenly these would show as served on the FCC map, and that's a concern always because you've got one fixed wireless provider, and T-Mobile has said that if they get a certain number of customers, they can't take any more because they're really interested in preserving their mobile business, and if they feel like they don't have enough spectrum to handle their mobile business plus fixed wireless, then they stop taking fixed wireless orders. So you could be here. It could say today that you have service, And then a month from now, they get that customer that kind of breaks the spectrum back. And then suddenly they can't take customers anymore. And then suddenly you've got people that are out of luck. So that's always a concern on fixed wireless in that situation. So anyway, looks like the FCC is more accurate according to what we're hearing on the ground than the Texas Broadband Map. Now, I don't know if this is indicative of other areas in Texas. I expect that it is, because I really do think the FCC has been really focusing on getting this map accurate. They've been taking challenges from the public, from communities, from states, from ISPs, and they're putting a lot of pressure on ISPs to get this data right, and they have a big hammer if ISPs report something wrong. Some have, and the FCC is looking at enforcement of that. So that may be one reason why the FCC maps are more accurate. I don't know why. Maybe Consolidated was just sloppy. If they're the provider in this area, let's say, we're just sloppy in saying that they provide DSL in this area and everybody's over 25 by 3, when in reality, maybe they have some areas that are close again to their central office or wherever their DSLAM is that do get that, but lots of other areas don't. So I'm sure they'll be looking into that more closely. Thanks for joining me. I appreciate it. And I will be back tomorrow with broadband deployment news. If you like this video, if you give me a like on that, I'd appreciate it. Click the subscribe button to be notified when I'm live, and click the bell to be notified when I'm live. Thanks a lot. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.